right. So thank you, Alicia, and one warm welcome to our Rotary Zoom meeting. It's really fantastic to have you all together tonight, and we really appreciate you guys putting all your time and effort to be with us tonight. So tonight we're gonna have the merit to learn more about robotic fish farming and deployment of robots to catch python in the Everglades. So I need to share something with you guys. I have a phobia of snake, and I would rely tonight on our guest speaker, Robert Huber. Maybe you're gonna help me, overcome my phobia. So, so that's why I'm really here. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be brave, and I will see. Maybe you're gonna share a presentation with a bunch of snake, and I will make sure I will look at it. So, Alicia, I think I was thinking that your dad would be here.
Yep.
I see your
Yep,
dad.
he's there. Yep. We'll go ahead and have him, if you're ready, we'll have him introduce our speaker.
Correct. So I will hand over to you, Richard, if you would like to introduce our guest speaker.
Thank you, Mona. We're privileged to have with us tonight Bob Huber, Dr. Huber, who I've known for about 3 years now. And when I was president of AIF, and you all know AIF, which I've given you some programs from AIF. It's an Agriculture Incubator Foundation is what it stands for. And Bob was looking for space one day, and so I rented him a large greenhouse, and he was going to do research in fish, I thought. As it turns out, he's doing research with equipment on fish. So I was only half right. But anyway, and we have a 1 acre pond there, also a deep irrigation pond, has 20 feet deep, so which he has now consumed use of. And his fish he was working with was trout. And that was sort of interesting that here we are in Ohio, and he's producing trout fish in tanks. And his equipment basically was to start the ability to separate fish by sizes or by species with all this equipment he has. He'll explain this later, but it's quite in detail because it includes photography, includes sensing fish by size, color, and a number of other things. And he'll discuss how that all happens. But anyway, the whole point was that this was something that could take place on the farm and be of use to hopefully the agriculture or the fish industry in the eastern part of the United States. He was on staff at BGSU, Bowling Green State University. He is now still on staff there, but he's also on staff at Harvard. So that shows you he has some credentials behind him relative to what he's doing. And I know Bob has traveled. I've tried to catch him. Sometimes I catch him in the Netherlands, or I catch him in Norway, or I catch him in somewhere in the world, not in the United States, where he's promoting use of his equipment and trying to further develop equipment with other countries where it might be useful for separating fish very gently, so that they're not all beat up, and you get more marketable fish from that standpoint. And also from the standpoint of critters. In north here, we have a lamprey, which is nothing more than an eel, which attaches itself to a fish and then lives off that fish while it's swimming around, and it distorts the fish and creates all kinds of problems. And he'll tell you maybe about how he can set traps for those and use the equipment for that. So, not using any more of Bob's time, I'd like to introduce you, Dr. Bob Huber.
Thank you very much, Dick. Hello, everyone. Really kind introduction, Dick. You've been along for our journey pretty much from the beginning when we started this. It's a little bit of a background. It's not something that I've done all my life. I've been academic for the last 35 years or so at BGSU, OSU, Harvard, and the Fisheries Institute in the Czech Republic. I've mostly worked in data science and systems biology. A lot of the work had been in drug addiction, neurological disorders. And a couple of years ago, I got to the point, maybe call it maybe a midlife crisis or something. And I got to the point where I really wanted to do something where I can justify the oxygen I've taken up in this planet with something that goes beyond what I'd been doing until then. So I ended up using a lot of the technology that I had developed for the last 30 years to apply it to something that I'm hoping to convince you is an important issue. Are you guys okay if I put up a couple slides first? And it would be great if you guys want to interrupt me whenever you'd like to. I'd happily stop and skip some slides or whatever. Let's see. Do I have the option of sharing things?
Yeah, you do. You're set up.
Beautiful. It doesn't seem to give me the option though. Oh, I think it just did. It just took a second. Hang on, I assure you, I'm usually not that bad with computers. So let's see. Try again. I guess after I heard you guys talk about the computer problems, I'm wondering whether mine isn't working particularly well right now. Are you guys okay if I just quickly bounce off and rejoin?
Sure. Sure, we can hang out and talk. We should have a couple more people coming on anyway, so Will's getting set to come on. He had an earlier meeting, so.
I can't get on. Is there a new meeting number?
No.
828354?
That's all right.
You won't let me in.
Well, there you go. We're all having computer issues.
Alicia, did you go to Pat's?
No, no, I did not. I was here working.
Wait.
So. And I don't think Melinda didn't get a chance to go. It's just been a crazy time for us.
Yeah.
Let's see if he can start up again.
So I'm hoping.
Lisa, you've got everyone muted. Going to my pictures.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So let me try again.
Do you have your little bottom thing that says share screen?
Yeah, I do see that, but nothing shows up in it for me to share, which is a really odd one. Okay, let me try this. I'm just going to share the whole screen instead of a window.
That's fine.
And
There you go.
if I'm switching over to the right one. Can you guys see the slide?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay, beautiful. So maybe let me go back a little bit. So I'm probably dating myself, but I was of the generation that was really impacted by the early Apollo 8 images. I was a kid at the time, but I saw these images of the Earthrise over the surface of the moon, and it instantly made me realize that we lived on a pretty spectacular little blue marble that was a limited resource with a very finite world. And I just instantly became an environmentalist in doing that, and it became very clear that that's what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. But I got distracted for about 30, 40 years in between. But I came back to that, and I really came to realize that the skills that I had learned in the meantime, a lot about AI, a lot about robotics, a lot about computing, might actually be helpful now for addressing some of those emerging crises in food and water insecurity that's emerging on this planet. So I think what's very clear is that we're facing this voracious demand for more animal protein on this planet. And it's a demand that we're not going to meet by growing more cows, pigs, and chickens. The planet just can't support that kind of change. With rising population numbers and changing socioeconomics, where a lot of countries are switching from a mostly vegetarian diet to increasing inclusion of animal protein, it's just not going to work. And so we're facing this moral imperative that we have to grow more fish. The state of our natural resources, of our wild fisheries, also means that we don't have a lot more to catch. So what we have to do is we have to be able to grow more fish and more seafood, and we have to grow it in a sustainable way that does less damage to the planet. There's really one major problem that we're facing in doing that, and that is that when we grow fish, that whole process is completely dependent on outdated technologies, where every interaction with the fish in a fish farm is completely manual. It depends on physical handling of the fish, looking at them, measuring them, deciding whether you want to harvest that one. And if it's not time for that yet, you put them back into the tank. And those are practices that we've long known are really counterproductive. So we damage the fish, we make them very susceptible to all kinds of diseases once we injure their mucus covering. We stress them out. They become very bad at converting the food that we put into it into usable sides of a smoked salmon. So it's really counterproductive to do manual management, and yet our entire fish farming industry is predicated on doing that. So our vision really is to do that differently. Our vision really is to manage the entire workflow in an aquaculture without ever having to touch the fish. The first time a fish should get touched by a person is when it ends up on the plate and you're going to eat it. So the difficulty in the industry have gone beyond the fact that it depends on manual handling. So one way the system has been trying to negotiate the associated problems is to just make these farms bigger and bigger and bigger and just chase economies of scale for that. And what we've learned in the meantime is that really all we've done is we've multiplied the underlying problems. And these farms have gotten so big that at this point, it becomes very, very difficult to even understand what's going on inside. And even if we find out that something is going on that we don't like, there's nothing we can do about it. And because of that, disease outbreaks are always caught late. They have a constant fear of catastrophic losses of the entire population, like I think the Atlantic sapphire in Miami has kept finding out over and over and over the last couple of years. Also, the harvests are then delayed because the fish are stressed and unhappy. And the way we grow fish right now is neither sustainable, nor resilient, nor efficient. So what we are trying to do is we're trying to rethink that. And this is just an example of one of the devices that we've got some IP on. So if you imagine that the fish enters our device from the left through this red baffle, it's like a glorified minnow trap. So the fish can only go in, but not out. It goes into the yellow section. In the yellow section, it becomes it gets assessed with our AI system, and then based on that AI assessment, it moves on into the green section where there is a gate that can flip back and forth and either open exit A or exit B. So I mean this. It's really a fiendishly simple concept, but we can do a lot with that under the hood. So we've got a high-resolution infrared imaging system that allows us to identify sick fish, parasitized fish. We can get very efficient estimates of the size of the fish. So we can do size grading. We can do size-specific harvesting. We can harvest by specific genotype, sex, whatever we want to do. So many different things we can do, and we can really optimize the way a fish farm works without touching the fish. Here are a couple of examples. Some of those were actually from Dick's AIF, where we had a steelhead trout aquaculture. And what I want you guys to get from this is that the fish are completely at ease interacting with our devices. They swim into it. They're not really worried about anything. As long as the thing doesn't move, it's not threatening. And even when the gate moves, it's part of the system, and they just go through whatever gate is open to them. On the right lower corner, you see our detection algorithm that we trained for these fish as they're swimming through. So as the fish is recognized, it puts a bounding box around the fish. And from the size of the bounding box, we can tell how big the fish is and then use all kind of inferencing based on that to sort out fish of a particular size, for example. We got a pretty small team. We actually a women-owned, majority woman-owned blue tech startup. Moira van Staden is our managing director and majority owner of this. Chris Kemp is with the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, but he also works with us as an analyst for the data. Joe Konezny is our IoT specialist, and Scott Hall is a friend who is at University of Toledo Pharmacology, who also been working with us on these projects for a while. So I think the thing that sets us apart is really the ability to do underwater imaging. And it is surprisingly hard to do that. So water is really not particular. It's a very harsh environment towards the transmission of electromagnetic radiation. It absorbs light, it scatters it with every little piece of turbid particle that's in there. Every air bubble distorts the view. Every change in salinity, temperature, water density, particle flow, all of these distort the images. It just becomes harder and harder to take some images. So picture in aquaculture, it's actually doubly hard because these facilities, in this case, it's a recirculation aquaculture system, so it's a land-based one, like the one Atlantic Sapphire has at in Miami. These are hyper-oxygenated, so there is a constant bubbling of tiny little oxygen particles that are coming out, and the equivalent would be to trying to get some decent images in a blinding snowstorm. So we've been trying to work pretty hard on trying to get some decent images, and we've really made quite a bit of progress. Here's some example of what this looks like. These are salmon in our fish farm, where we're working with a large commercial fish farm producer in upstate New York called Local Coho. They produce about 1,000 metric tons of coho salmon a year. And we've been developing all kind of technologies where we can film the fish in the tanks and at the same time develop all kind of mechanisms and biomarkers to identify individuals, identify sick fish. Whatever we train our AI system on, we can ultimately identify. So, hang on. Yeah. So this is an example of the facility at Local Coho. They're large tanks. They're about 200 feet long, about 18 feet wide, about 8 feet deep. Each one holds about 17,000 salmon. Some of those are up to about 2 or 3 kilos, so about 6, 7 pounds. They're lovely fish, but there are lots of them. And we've been working with them very closely on trying to deploy some of our tools in their facility, trying to solve some of their management difficulties that they're having by making it simpler, by replacing people with a net with these devices. Looks like there's a video that's not working. Okay. So this was some of the fish farming, and the real justification for us has been that we are in need of being able to do fish farming smarter, more sustainably, and really use that to address some of the rise in food insecurity on this planet. We've just been invited to join the US trade delegation to the Tokyo Blue Tech Expo in a couple of weeks, where we will be given the opportunity to present as one of 8 startups from the US in the US Pavilion, some of the work that we are doing about reinventing aquaculture with new tools in AI and robotics. But the same technology that I showed you before, where you've got one incoming tube and then 2 different exits, and you've got an AI assessment system that can choose between desirable and undesirable fish, or the ones that you want to select for harvesting, the same technology can be used for a completely different purpose. In this case, we got some funding from the National Science Foundation. Dick mentioned that there are these invasive sea lampreys in the Great Lakes that have gotten into the Great Lakes once we built the Lake Erie Canal around the Niagara Falls. They settled in the Great Lakes, and they have wiped out for about 50, 60 years, just about all the fisheries in the Great Lakes. The only reason why we now have a fishery that has returned is because bilateral committee between the US and Canada is spending many, many millions of dollars a year to battle the population of sea lampreys at an ecosystem scale. The unfortunate situation is that the only tool that they have at this point is lampricides. So they have picked 800 tributaries to the Great Lakes that are common breeding grounds of these sea lampreys. And at the time when the lampreys migrate up those rivers, the US and Canadian government poisons those rivers in order to prevent the lampreys from spawning. It's not a particularly lightweight solution, but it's the only one that we have, and the only one that is giving us the opportunity to have some fisheries in the Great Lakes. So this angle of making species-specific smart traps for invasives is one that has gotten more and more interesting to us. The one that I want to mention is we just got a contract from a fashion company in New York called Inversa Leathers that does a lot of work in Florida. If you're not familiar with them, please look them up. They do absolutely marvelous work. The idea is they want to make wearing of leather cool again by using leather from invasive species. One of the main species that they're working on, they've got a couple of them. Let me show you a couple of examples. The top one is from lionfish. The middle one is an example of dragon fins, and the bottom one is from pythons. They're turning those into absolutely marvelous fashion accessories and all kind of interesting things. So they hired us to help them catch some of these invasive species. One of the projects is that we are starting to gear up, is starting to build some lionfish traps by building our traps into some artificial reefs where we can then harvest some of these lionfish. And I'm pretty sure that you guys are quite familiar with the damage that they're doing. I suspect you're also quite familiar with the damage that pythons are doing in the Everglades, and I fear that one is not going to take away your dislike of snakes. Some of these are pretty formidable predators. So I want to introduce you to Amy, who is a professional python hunter in Florida. She moved there from Ohio, and I can't wait to actually come to visit her with our team. She takes groups out into the Everglades on hunting trips where you can hunt your own pythons, and she shows you how to find them and what to do with them if you do find them. She's quite an impressive person. This is an okay. There was one other slide that I was hoping to show you with this is probably the biggest pythons that she has caught, but they do get a little bit bigger than that. Yeah, sorry. Wasn't sure whether there was a question. Please interrupt me whenever. So these snakes get pretty big. They get up to about 20 feet, about 150 pounds. And because of them, there's really a shortage now of all kind of mammals, birds in the Everglades. They've really decimated the native fauna, and whatever we can do to reduce their numbers is great. So here's the thing that we are doing for them. These are some of those devices that we are using. We are right now having some of these devices in review with the Florida Fish and Wildlife Department. We don't have the permits yet, but we're hoping to be able to get those permits in the near future. Then we can deploy those in the field, catch some pythons, and start helping reduce those numbers. Yeah, so I'm going to stop right here. And I'd love to see whether there are any questions that I could address, or any answers that I could offer.
Yeah, Bob, I've got one quick question.
Mhm.
How long did it take you from concept to actual operational item for your fish sorting system?
Mm-hmm. That's a lovely question. So in 2017, we started the journey. I gave up my positions at the universities. And we really spent the first year on nailing down the patent protection for this. From about 2018 on, we started doing a lot of the validation testing at the AIF at Dick's facility. 2019, 2020, well, 2019 was a bit of a washout for all of us, I guess. Yeah. 2020, we got into the incubators in the Boston area, into the innovation space for AI from MIT, and into the robotics innovation space at Mass Robotics. So that's really when our actual prototype development started, and we connected with local Coho at the time. So ultimately about 3 years, where the actual development was about a year.
Mm-hmm. And do you have international patents?
Yes, we do. So we've just got office action from the European Patent Office, which is an important one for us because obviously the role of Norway as a customer as well as an innovation hub for aquaculture. The other place where we're still waiting for some patent reviews to complete is in India. India is another place where it's very clearly one of the epicenters of rising food insecurity, with being the most populous nation, and the changes socioeconomics have really been bringing a huge switch towards animal diets. And the Indian government realizes that they have to place a huge investment into fish farming. Their prediction was just that they would like to double their current fish farm production within the next couple of years, which is a massive undertaking. We won't object if they want to invest in this.
Hi, this is Andrew. I just want to show you. This is a Inversa bag. It's made by T Coop in
Oh,
New Orleans,
lovely. Uh-huh.
and this is made out of python.
Oh, it's
Um,
lovely.
So here you see the python, and it's all done with suede. So I work with Kahan. You probably know Kahan and his
Oh,
brother.
yes, absolutely.
And I work with them. I do retail and fashion. I'm a professor, so we've had their stuff in our fashion shows, and I've featured them on TV and two episodes. One was for the National List TV, and one was for my TV show, The Look. So this is what it looks like, and they've done some fabulous work. This comes in different colors and whatever. So they also do belts and bags and things like that. So I thought, I hope you don't mind. I thought I'd show you some finished products
I very
with what
much
they do.
appreciate that. Yes,
And
yes, yes,
and
yes.
and I know and there's one woman and she's been featured. She's taking salmon now. I think she's from Sweden, and she's turning those fish into belts and bags and so forth.
Mhm.
I also work with Deserto, a little something with you talk about sustainability. They're turning agave and cactus into leather and coats and everything. So
Oh,
not that
lovely.
you can really eat that, but there are a lot of companies now turning food products and byproducts into clothing and so forth. I know it doesn't help us so much with the eating. Of course, you can eat lionfish. It tastes like chicken. But for the other hand, that people need to wear clothes for sustainability. So a lot of these companies are turning things again like the lionfish, cactus. We see pineapple, apple, and so many others into byproducts for textiles.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Those are
My
absolutely
pleasure.
gorgeous.
Yeah, this is the other Andy. I noticed on one of your slides, either a collaboration or a reference or some sort of cooperation with the Cool and Cold Water Aquaculture Research Center in Leetown, Virginia. And I was just curious what you were doing with them. I
Mhm.
spent 38 years with the parent organization of Leetown, the Agriculture Research Service. And I just like to keep track of what's going on around the agency. So I was curious what you're doing with them.
Oh, very gladly. So no, we've so I'm not sure whether you're familiar with the Small Business Innovation Research Grants,
Oh,
SBIR
absolutely.
grants. We've been quite fortunate to tap into this. So we've applied for 5 of them, and we got all 5. So we got 2 from NOAA, we got 2 from NSF, and the newest one is coming from the USDA. I think that's the one that you're referring to, where we've got a couple partners, including the Freshwater Institute in West Virginia, and a couple other partners. We are also partnering for that with AMD, the computing company, who is partnering with us on the AI side. For us, it's really about bringing in the right people to solve a massive problem. and our ability right now, our upcoming visit to Japan is actually giving us the opportunity to connect with a couple of the industrial automation giants. So we've gotten quite far right now with some discussions with Mitsubishi to see whether we can tap into some of their mature platforms for automating the various system and the robotics. So yeah, no, I like that you picked out the partner slide, because that part is very important to us. It's clearly bigger than we can solve as a small startup company. And for us, it's really about solving the problems with bringing the right people in. And they've been good partners. So thanks for pointing those out.
Yeah, well, it's good to know.
And those SBIR grants have been a real lifeline for us, because of that, we don't have to be panicking about, we've got a pretty decent runway for our R&D development for a couple of years. And because of that, we really haven't looked for a round of funding through venture capital. The discussions that we had was very clear that we're not interested in them and they're not interested in us, simply because we don't have the smell of desperation that they would like to see. We're definitely interested in finding the right partners and partnering for the right reasons.
Yeah, I guess just one other comment, and that is from your introduction, I share your view that the future of animal protein production is in aquaculture, and beyond the things that you mentioned and the limitations to what we have on terra firma, fish are very efficient converters of nitrogen. They're monotelic, and even chickens who are uricotelic and more efficient than mammals, fish are the most they are the most efficient converters of nitrogen to protein. And so that's another reason why our future of animal protein production is going to be in aquaculture.
Couldn't agree more. And I really appreciate that you pointed that out. I think there is another interesting angle to that I think needs to come out stronger. So there's a lot of focus on, for example, raising insects as a source of animal protein. Now, people aren't really that excited about eating insect burgers. But the nice thing is, you can launder that animal protein from insects through fish, who are very happy to eat those insects, and turning it with a food ratio of 2-to-1 into high quality, nutritious protein. And I don't think that's been really recognized as much as it should be. It's going to be much easier to just feed fish. They don't have, like you said, they don't have to carry their own weight. They don't have to keep up with keeping the temperature up to a certain level. So no, they're a lot more effective. And you give them 2 pounds of good feed, and they turn into 1 pound of fish.
Mm. Yeah.
Bob,
Go ahead, Will.
Yeah, I just last week finished rewatching Soylent Green with Charlton Heston and Edward G. Robinson, and I'm just really glad that you're going to help prevent us from going there.
That's a tough act to follow. We recognize that lionfish is a worldwide problem.
Yes.
And anything that you guys can do on a profit motive that would go after them, because right now we're spearfishing them, and that's a very expensive way of doing it. And so if you got people making handbags out of them, out of their skin, and you got profit driving it, bingo.
Yep.
So I applaud what you're doing. Question though, are the universities of Texas and FSU and University of Florida and USF Marine Science, are they encouraging, providing help, et cetera, to your operations?
No, we've had very few interactions with the universities. The interactions that we've had generally get very complicated because once a university becomes involved, the IP issues become virtually impossible to solve as a Gordian knot. Some universities take a very grabby approach on this. If they looked at something, then it's theirs. That doesn't mean that we haven't had absolutely wonderful interactions with individual researchers, but it's something where I think everybody has to tread very lightly and figure out exactly how to navigate some very obvious pitfalls.
Yeah, getting your stuff owned by you and what's the right word for saying, getting it patented properly before you let the cat out of the bag.
That's exactly it. Yeah. So yeah, it's been a big part of our journey. I mean, we had some very helpful patent attorneys who joined our group early on, and they've been giving us absolutely wonderful advice. So really for us, it was right from the beginning about building a strong patent portfolio and then building on that. And that just means that, first of all, the provisional patents need to go in, and then you can mine those patents for the next 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I totally agree. That's a huge part of the journey, and the combination between patent protection and the SBIR grants that we mentioned before, a really good way that startup companies at this point in this environment and this climate can do a lot of damage.
Bob, this is Michelle. Thank you
Hi,
so much
Michelle.
for the presentation. It's fantastic. And
Thank you.
I have a just quick question. Do you have any particular countries that you would like to work with? And the reason why I'm asking that is because I'm meeting with the USDA, head of USDA for Puerto Rico this week. And we're going to talk about different farmers and things like that, because I do have some land in Puerto Rico that I want to be able to do something with. And I remember that she had a particular farmer that had 300 acres of land. And part of what he did is start to do something with fish, some fish tanks and things like that. I don't know what the situation is with that right now, but I'm asking because I'm curious as to what your ideal clients would be. Where would they be? India, Asia, Caribbean, where would that be?
No, that's a lovely question. And yeah, I totally agree that. Okay, so the simple answer for us is our tools that we developed are going to be working the best at this point, the way we have them in something called recirculation agriculture system. Like the facility that I showed you in upstate New York, in a large terrestrial-based place where you fill it up with water once, so you circulate the water around, and you replace a little bit of water every day. But those large RAS facilities are the ones that are really our beachhead customers. That's mostly in the US at this point, because I think the US has just realized that only about 10% of our domestic seafood consumption is actually domestically produced. The vast majority, up to 90%, is coming from places with very ill-defined environmental standards. Most of that is going to be China, Bangladesh, Thailand, and there is a big push now in the US to actually build those kind of facilities that we would like to deploy in order to raise that domestic production well beyond those 10% that we're currently covering. Puerto Rico would certainly be a really interesting place for us. I'm almost certain that it counts as a domestic market to the US.
Yeah, it's part of the US.
Mhm. And because of that, there are certainly species of fish that would work really well there that wouldn't work at other places. For us, it's really about scale, large facilities with lots of fish where we can automate the workflow in a way that we can process and assess and sort fish on a continuous basis. So that would be our favorite place, would be these large RAS systems. Japan is exactly building those right now. They realizing two things. One was that their Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry has just published a new guidelines that, first of all, they've relied for way too long on wild capture fisheries, and they just became aware of the fact that most of their most productive fishing grounds have been siphoned clean by Russian and Chinese fishing fleets. There's also considerable worry about coastal marine net pen fish farming in Japan because of the release of radioactive water from Fukushima. So both of those are pushing very much their seafood production industry into land-based systems. But in addition, that the other angle to that is they've got a very rapidly declining workforce and a rapidly aging workforce. So especially in those areas where the fish farming is being done, people get old and they move to the city. So the areas where the fish farming is being done get becoming depopulated. So their focus has to be on doing robotic tools to get the fish farming done. So our timing has been good. We're at a good spot for this, but there are a couple of places that would certainly rank very highly. India, for obvious reasons. Honestly, to me, one of my most favorite projects would be to start working on a fish farm, maybe even offshore or submerged one, on working with tuna. That would be a fun one. I don't think a lot of people have attempted that simply because they're difficult to work with and just the scale of things that would have to be done, but it would be worth it.
Excellent. So I do have one question. So you mentioned in terms of your development timeline, did you mention that it took 1 year to develop it?
Yeah. To come up with the prototype that we started deploying in local Coho. I mean, we're no longer using the first prototype. We obviously at this point probably on prototype number 264 or something like that. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but the nice thing for us has been that we've earned the trust from a couple of large fish farms who know that our devices are not scaring them, they're not preventing them from feeding, and we're simply there to help them solve problems. And because of that, we've been given a lot of opportunity to try different types of prototypes, and we've been using that very, very diligently to really develop the tools into some that are starting to work pretty well.
Wow. I think it's impressive because, you are kind of ahead of your time in terms of AI because, this is now where everybody's kind of, leveraging AI.
Yeah.
You guys started a couple of years ago and are already ready. So you are really on top of the technology. And one more question I do have in terms of, because you mentioned that when the fish go there, you can scan them so that you can get to know the size. What kind of technology? Is it kind of something similar to I go to the doctor and I have to do an X-ray?
Great question. And I'm kicking myself right now that I didn't mention that specifically. It's an imaging system. Okay. So it's a video camera. It's a special one for us because our system is actually based on infrared. And there are a couple of different reasons for that. Infrared wavelengths are much longer than visible wavelengths. So because of that, they're much less attenuated by all kind of particles that are floating around in the water. So we can see in turbid water using infrared where we would see absolutely nothing in the visible spectrum. That's one reason. The second one is that we can actually put the light in order to turn our devices into a very dedicated lighting space. So it's basically a camera stage that the fish swims through, where we light the inside of this very generously with infrared LEDs. And we can do that without disrupting the fish because the fish doesn't have sensitivity to them. The fish doesn't see it, we don't see it, but the camera is very sensitive to it. So we can get absolutely beautiful images, whether it's day or night. And we can do that in turbid water. There are lots of really good reasons for us to use infrared, and that's really our strength. I totally love the thing that you pointed out about AI not having been invented yesterday. So absolutely. So we've been using AI tools, obviously not at the level that we can do now, but we've started dipping into AI tools for automated behavioral phenotyping in about 2003. And we've been part of that whole development. Clearly, a huge change has happened in the last 2 years or so, where all of these wonderful generative AI tools have come to market, where the general public can use them now in ways that is just so intuitive and so accessible to them that it's suddenly on everybody's mind. But yeah, no, I totally agree. It's been around for a while. And really the stuff that we're doing is doing a lot of the ugly part of AI, optimizing convolutional neural networks in order to really get the best result out of it in very difficult imaging conditions. But it's all infrared.
Yeah, excellent. And what is the name of the devices?
Pardon me?
What is the name of the device?
I'm not sure whether we've got a name for it. It's the fish sorter.
It's a fish sorter. Okay. No name yet. Okay.
Yeah. I have a question regarding the pythons.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I'm wondering, other than the skin, is there any meat there that's worthwhile to harvest, or is there other things that would cause people to take your pythons you catch in your tube system to market somehow?
Tastes like chicken.
Well, yeah, but if you
Or
get
alligator.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
alligators,
But if you get a marketplace wanting the meat, then you can build more of your projects and do more
Yeah, no,
damage to
absolutely.
python.
So for us, really, the revenue stream is not from the actual product. So we're trying to stay out of all the ethical questions about what to do with the python once it's get caught.
Oh.
So for example, our customers rent the device from us and then pay us a monthly subscription to interact with our devices remotely from their computer. They see what came in. They send some hunt out there to harvest the snakes, do with them whatever they need to do, and but no, they can certainly be eaten. The bigger pythons get really fatty. They are not very pleasant. But like most snakes, I think smaller specimens are not bad.
So basically you rent the devices, or if people want to buy them, they can also buy them, or do you only rent them?
So that's exactly the discussion that we're right in the middle of figuring out exactly our best commercialization plan.
Gotcha.
And we went into this thinking that we are a hardware company. We build these devices, we sell them, and that's it. What we come away with is that that's not really where our revenue is. Our revenue is going to be in the manager in a fish farm, for example, who deploys our devices. They want to log in the morning. They want to know what happened last night, how many fish went through, were there any that looked funny? If they looked funny, give me a picture of what that funny fish looked like. Was it sorted out? And then you can send the vet there. So it's really about interacting with the device. And then also the images that get captured of every fish that go through, we can use those to retrain our AI system every couple of weeks. Our system gets better and better every time we have throw more and more fish at this, and then we upload the improved system onto it. So it's really about a two-way interaction with our devices, and that's done through a monthly subscription fee. So we are no longer a hardware company. We're just a hardware-enabled software company, which is a weird concept to us, but I take it.
Well, you guys are very creative.
I have a question. So I understand when you have the fish sorting, it's basically in a contained environment,
Mhm.
like in
Yes.
upstate New York. What attracts pythons to the device? Why would they want to go in?
So there are a couple of things. So first of all, so the biology of snakes is you can give them stuff that they want to hide under. So
Right.
for example, the simplest one is if you put some corrugated metal out into the Everglades, you leave it there for 2 weeks and you turn it over, you can almost guarantee that there are a bunch of snakes under there. So there are things that you can do. They do like openings to go into. You can also make those openings more attractive by putting all kind of smells onto them that they might be interested to investigate. What I've seen people do is in the Python hunting world is they have a dead rat that they rub onto the inside of things, and you can almost guarantee that some pythons are going to go there and check it out. So there are lots of different ways of doing it, but pythons do like openings, especially if you have the entrance to it maybe covered partially with some matter from dead leaves and things like that.
Yeah, I was just curious. I actually have a high school classmate that's a python hunter.
Oh, okay.
So, matter of fact, he's
I'm
been
sure he knows 10 times more about what we can do with our traps to get the snakes in.
Excellent. Is there any more question for Robert? I know it was very, very interesting and inspiring, what you guys are doing. So
I really appreciate you guys' kind words. Those were absolutely lovely questions, and it's really great. It's very heartwarming for me to see that other people care about what we do with our planet as well. So thank you for sharing that.
Bob, thank you very much. Glad to have you aboard and keep me in the circle.
Absolutely. You're always the first one to hear.
Great job. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you so much, Robert. Would really appreciate it. And this worked out well.
And I can't thank you enough for giving me the chance to present what we do. It's
Yep. And just so you know, this is a portion of our club. I do record the meetings. They will be on our club's YouTube channel and on a next bulletin that goes out. So every club member will have a chance to watch.
beautiful. Thank you very much.
thank you. Thanks for coming. Enjoy your evening. I think it was really great.
Yeah, that was good.
It
That was
good.
fascinating. It was just like having a direct line into a piece of the future.
That's right. That's right. Interesting. And I was even able to watch, the python during a couple of seconds, but then I had to turn my head.
Based upon Alicia's question and comment about her classmate, she might want to become a python hunter. I mean, she's from Ohio.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'll let my friends do that. I'll just watch them on TV. If you've
Yeah,
ever watched,
he's
if
the
you've ever watched the show Swamp People
Swamp People. Yeah.
down in the Everglades when they do shows down from the Everglades, he's one of those people. So yeah. Anyway.
He's the guy without the Cajun accent.
Yeah, believe it or not.
Or the bib overalls.
Amazing. Wow.
Well, that was great. Dick, thanks for getting
Yeah,
Bob
thanks.
to talk to us. That was just great.
Bob's a great guy, and he's doing some great things, you can see, and I like the guy a lot.
Yeah, yeah. What
And
what
it-
is his accent? Where is he from?
Austria.
Austria. Okay.
What I thought. Okay.
And he's got, if anybody's read, I know, Maloney, you have, and of course, I know Dad, that you have read his bio.
This
And
is
that
what
was
I
only a
thought.
portion because I couldn't fit it all on.
It
Yeah.
was impressive, you know.
Oh.
Incredible.
It really, and he did a lot of different things.
I think we can have him back on to discuss other things like the cybersecurity.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I am
yeah.
also interested, you know, for all the program we are doing for the youth, because he said that he was working on all those drug addiction, and I really would like to know what he was doing on this area.
Yeah, so definitely.
Yeah. That's excellent.
Okay.
All right, so.
Well, I might say that Harvard went after him to get him.
Okay.
They went, I don't know what all they offered him, but he went to Harvard. Harvard went to him.
Yeah.
It says a lot about the person.
Wow.
And this evening he was talking to us from Boston before
he
he
was
heads
talking.
to Japan. Yeah.
From his office in Boston.
It's Boston.
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 Bahaba.
Yeah. He was just in the middle of a big classroom. Anyway.
Well, that was great.
Okay. Well, Maloney, do you want to end with the four-way test and then take a
Yes.
break before we start the BOD meeting?
Of course.
Awesome.
So, is it the truth?
The truth.
Is it fair to all
fair to
concerned?
all
Concern.
Will it
Will
build
it build
goodwill?
goodwill and better
Better
friendship?
friendships.
Will it be
Be
beneficial?
beneficial.
Beneficial to
all
all concerned.
And is
Good
it
night,
the
everybody.
Good night, Andy.
Good night, and thanks
Right.
a lot, everyone, for joining. So do you
Okay.
want to take 5-minute break before?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
I've had enough coffee. I need to take a break.
Okay, so let's take 5-minute break then.
Okay. Ray, if you want to stay on, so then
Yes,
we
I'll stay on.
talk about
Yes.
perfect.
Thank you.
See everybody soon.
Okay, see you in 5 minutes.